Welcome to the Simon Racing Report's first podcast for 2020. It's been a while, I know. Go easy on me. It's all available at the SimonRacingReport.com. That's our website. You can subscribe on YouTube, iTunes, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, whatever you want to call it. We're also on Spotify, of course, now too. We've been there for the past 6 months, so subscribe there if that floats your boat, and that's a platform you like to listen on. And you can also grab the RSS feed, like the podcast page on Facebook, or follow me on Twitter at JohnnyS8. Don't forget to check out Team Mad. We are supporting Team Mad for over a year now, I think. Supporting Paul Smith and the boys over there in their endeavors throughout the sim racing universe. But just before we begin this podcast, I don't want to go into a whole tribute about it, but this is the first podcast I've recorded since the death of Kobe Bryant in late January, and it was news that hit the sporting world and the world even by surprise. It was just shocking news, and of course him and 8 other people, I might have the numbers wrong, but him and a lot of people died on that aircraft, including his daughter, and it was very, very tragic news and something that we hope never happens again, but it's part of life, it's part of the world, so this stuff's unfortunately going to happen, and we've got to deal with it and remember him and move on. But he was definitely a childhood idol of mine, a guy I really looked up to on and off the court. He was an awesome, awesome human being, and he was someone who I think just made this world a better place. And when you lose someone like that, that's never good, and never good, of course, as well. But condolences to him, his family. Condolences to them. Condolences to everyone else who was close to him, of course, too, because it was a very tragic event. But as I said, I don't want to go into a whole 15-minute tribute about it, but the best way I can summarize it is when you watch a superhero movie, like Spider-Man or something like that, the superheroes just aren't supposed to die. They're not someone who's supposed to leave this earth. And when I think about Kobe Bryant, that's what he was to a lot of people. It's not something that was supposed to happen to a guy like that. And when you still read about it today, you just don't think it's true. I just can't fathom how this can happen to a person like that. But unfortunately, it's true, and you sort of have to move on from it. There's no conspiracy about this or anything. It's very tragic news, but I think if the world can at least use the lessons and move on living the way that he did and using that as a tribute, the world will be a better place, because that's the way he sort of left, So he sort of touching a lot of people's lives in a very, very good way, competitive nature, the way you approach life, even on the court, just his skill and his footwork and his ability, his IQ for the game. It really reached out to millions of people around the globe, and it was very, very tragic news. But with the whole coronavirus dilemma going on now in the world, it's not looking like 2020 is the best year so far. There's literally no sport going on, and it's a great time to bring on Richard Arnaud from Race Clutch, who's owner and CEO at Race Clutch. He's at Lift and Coast on Twitter, __ on Twitter. You'll see it during the podcast. But a great time to talk about him, of how sim racing can boom during the virus. And I know it's a very sad time for the world, but it's an opportunity for other people to take advantage of and to grow. And one of those stakeholders, in a sense, is sim racing as a whole, as an industry. So that's something we'll talk about. We're going to talk about his articles that he's written. They're published on LinkedIn. I'll put those in the description of the podcast, so you can check those out whenever you can. And of course, Coanda Simsport's new sim racing team house. What the hell is that? That's awesome. That's great news. Very unexpected news. I had no insight into that at all. That hit me by surprise when I read about that. We'll talk about all of that and more coming on. Richard Arnaud up next. Welcome to the Simon Racing Report. Richard Arnaud is dropping by, who you dropped by, a few years ago already? And now this is your reunion. Second time onto the podcast.
Hi, mate. Yeah, I think so. I think it was maybe 2 years ago, I think.
Yeah.
Something like that. I just started on iRacing 1 year,
Before
year
that.
when we first do that episode.
We talked a lot about Race Clutch because you are the Race Clutch owner and CEO, one of the
Yep.
top teams in sim racing. You're now, I don't know, we were talking about this before the podcast. You're like a sim racing entrepreneur now. You do reporting, you do a lot of stuff behind the scenes. Uh, How did you get into all of this? I mean, you talked about opening up your network, but goodness, you're into so many things these days.
Yeah, it has started like I think 2 years ago when I really wanted to make a living of this passion for motorsport and of course for sim racing. So yeah, I have tried to take as much role as I can, like caster, being a caster, event organizer, of course team manager and drivers, what I have done for many years now, even starting a bit of consulting for firms and companies, and trying to move on as much sim racing events as I can. And as we have performed quite well last year, I was for in all the F1 Esports series events,
Mm.
in the Esports WRC finals. Same on Gran Turismo. There was an event in France at the start of 2019 in Paris, and the World Finals in Monaco. The Sim Racing Expo, of course. So trying to be on all the big
You're
places.
everywhere.
Yeah. Trying to be everywhere pretty much, to meet more people, talk about race clutch, and overall about my vision of sim racing as well. And yeah, trying to increase the visibility of the scene and the professionalization of it.
Yeah.
So for race clutch, yeah, in October last year, I entered into an incubator. So for those who don't know, an incubator is like a place where you have all the young companies, the startups, and we are launching the commercial registration of the company right now for Race Clutch, and a couple of good public announcement will be made in the next couple of months about that.
And in these next couple of months, it's very uncertain times ahead, I think, for the world because of the
Yeah,
coronavirus dilemma and COVID
yeah.
19, as it's officially known. And I mean, I don't think either of us are really classified or qualified to talk too much about the virus, but what I am qualified to talk about, and what you are, the impact that this virus is going to have on sim racing. And is this
Mm.
the time for sim racing and esports in general to boom?
Yeah, I think so, to be honest. Like, um, there is in every situation, there is always winners and losers, to simplify things. And for sim racing, without making sounding bad, I definitely think it is an opportunity for us. I mean, like the two initiatives launched by Veloce for the not the Australian Grand Prix, and Talk Esports with the All Star Esports Battle,
Hmm.
have really shown that the audience is there when you have a proper marketing, and when sim racing as a whole and as an esports is really put like by itself, and not just behind motorsport. When it is really in front of the scenes, the audience were really amazing, and I think definitely the people and the guests who race, and also the spectators, really appreciate what they have seen. And
Yeah.
that weekend for me, it was kind of like the Vegas e-race back in 2017.
Oh yeah.
Maybe the execution could have been better because the time for preparation was very short for those organizations.
Yeah.
But overall, this is a day that we will remember, because it has shown something else to the community and to the people who were not aware about what sim racing was all about. Because
But
lots of newspaper and motorsport papers have shared this information. I mean,
mm,
like TV diffuser for in France and all over the world. I've shared those initiatives, and since everyone has to stay at home, everyone is gaming or sim racing for motorsport passionates. So yeah, it's not like there is not anything to do anymore, because we for some of the business like ours, we can work from home pretty easily because everything is on the internet.
Yeah.
And shout out to all the people who are working to make the internet work, because we are forgetting them sometimes, because it's not happened by magic. There is still people behind working their ass off to make it work. So I
But
really think that
yeah,
these bad times are a really good opportunity for
with
sim racing as a whole.
with the Visa Vegas e-race a few years ago, that was a good time for sim racing to make its mistakes. You know, we had a lot of
Yeah,
viewers back
exactly.
then. But now,
It
like,
was not too big.
yeah, exactly. But it was big enough at the time to sort of grow sim racing, and it was a
Yeah,
good
exactly.
time to show promise. But like, I think that's
Exactly.
fine now. And you talked about this in your article. We'll speak about later. But do you think sim racing have got rid of all their mistakes? Because I still feel like there's a few mistakes sim racing is going to make in the future, and it's the same for real world organizations. You know, F1 still make mistakes.
Yeah, there is still a lot of things to fix. But I think it is like for esports 10 years ago it was the same thing, and for most of the sports through their histories.
Mm.
Like there is this balance now between the OGs of sim racing and the community, and
Yeah.
what sim racing is all about now, and the entry now of investors and people from the business side, who are trying to jump in and who are doing the mistakes, but on a bigger scale, of course, because there is more money involved. So projects who are catching more attention, and of course the mistakes who are done, even if roughly they have the same consequences as before. Sometimes the scale of it is a bit bigger because there is more people involved, more money involved, and more
Mm.
attention, a bigger audience overall. So I think there is still a lot of progress to be done, to be
Yeah.
to reach the whole potential that sim racing has.
And look at the two big events held over the weekend. You had the race, whatever that was. What was it called again? The
The
race.
All
I don't know.
Star Esports Battle, you mean?
Yeah,
And
something like that.
and the
And
other one, what? Not the Australian Grand
the
Prix.
Veloci one, is that the one you're talking about?
The Veloci one was not the Australian Grand Prix, and the Talk Esports one, slash IDS plus cars slash Esports plus cars,
Yeah.
whatever they want to call themselves, because they have changed the name like 3 or 4 times in the last 2 years.
Mm.
It was the All Star Esports Battle on Air Factor 2.
Well, you had at least I'm getting them all mixed up, but one of them had at least I think 150,000 viewers. The R
Yep,
Factor
the
2
Veloci
one,
ones.
yeah, exactly. And the R Factor 2 one had, what was that? At least I remember when I was watching it, it was at least 50,000 at one point.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the peak audience for the All Star Esports Battle was a bit higher than 50K
Yeah.
on YouTube. And for the Veloces one, I think the Veloce stream, so the official stream on Twitch plus YouTube, was around the same numbers.
Mm.
And then it was higher because there was all those influencers, like all of their network, like I'm thinking of Benjamin Daly, so Tiamat Marek, Arav, Lando Norris, of course, who were
Jean-Eric
streaming
Verne.
individually. So it has scaled a bit more the events.
Well, that's the thing now is I mean, there's a lot of people who can learn from this. If you're going to get that many viewers off 1 day or 2 days of advertising, it is about the names, isn't it? And the following, like, which is a little sad in a way, but it also shows how you can grow sim racing. And I feel like it's a good time to shine for example, for a world championship like iRacing, who have now got Max Verstappen. He's qualified for the
Mm,
world championship there. And is
mm.
that going to attract more viewers to the Porsche Esports Supercup, whatever it's called? And is that going to be better for iRacing? Because iRacing have struggled. I don't think iRacing have ever figured out how to get a big audience. I mean, all these other esports and sims are beating them. If you look at the numbers.
Yeah, to be honest, with iRacing, it is kind of a paradox, because on the overall side, like they're really doing a good job.
Doing
I
well.
mean,
Yeah.
the even last weekend with the Podium Esports event featuring, I think it was the Replacement 100, I think, if I'm not mistaken about the name of
Yeah.
the event. There
That
was
got a
like
lot of viewers.
25K viewers on Twitch. And even Podium is not the official broadcaster of the Coca-Cola
Nah.
eNASCAR series. So that was really impressive numbers considering the time of preparation also for them. But on the road course side, yeah, for the Porsche Esports Super Cup, I have talked about it in articles and on social networks multiple times, but
Mm.
I think the idea is really cool, and the fact to have Porsche behind, they are really putting the effort. But for me, and it's my opinion, of course, the concept was a mistake
What, the
because
two races you're talking about?
no, the choice of the car, in fact,
Oh,
like
well, I agree.
big
Yeah.
because taking to take a metaphor and a really quick example, when you are into a racing circuit and GT racing weekend on the Blancpain GT series, for example,
Mm.
I went to the 24 hours of Spa 2 years ago. When it is time for the Porsche Cup, when you're on the circuit, this is time to lunch
Yeah.
because this is the slowest car, and this is not the car you want to watch. You want to watch the Lamborghini Super Trofeo and the GT Freeze, you know.
Yeah.
So the Porsche East Cup Super Cup is really good for Porsche on the marketing tool for the gentleman drivers and the racing program for the clients. But for me to replicate that on the virtual world, it makes pretty much no sense because you don't have the attraction of the gentleman drivers and the technical support of Porsche. It's kind of difficult to make a marketing tool out of it. On the other hand, what I would have liked to see
Mm.
was still have maybe a Porsche branded championship,
Yeah.
but with multiple cars because there is a 919 in LMP1. They could have put like an historic LMP2 that they were racing in IMSA or
But
stuff
you,
like that a couple of years ago for an LMP2, and they have
yeah.
the Porsche RSR in GTs. So you
I
could
think
have a Porsche championship with multiple class racing.
but they did have that, didn't they, with the Blancpain GT series? Like, it wasn't that. I mean, I don't know what happened to the series at the end of the day, but obviously it's not around anymore. um, but the Blancpain World Championship, whatever it was called, and I don't know. I mean, I don't think multi-class is the way to go if you're gonna like this.
Blancpain wasn't multi-class, to be honest. It was only GT3s and then GTEs when it was called the VRS iRacing GT World Championship.
Yeah,
Because
but that's
when you
still
look at the
multi-class in a sense.
yeah, exactly. But when you check the audience, like if you check the Sports Car Open and the Neo Endurance Series, there are by far, and I mean really by far, without any push by iRacing, the ones who are making the most audience of it. Even, same for the special events.
Mm.
So I mean, this is like kind of a paradox compared to what we say. Like
Yeah,
people like short contents, extra. They will need short racing, extra. But when you are watching like a Rocket League event or Counter Strike event, it is hours of broadcast, and people are still watching it. So yeah, the thing is like there is a thing between content creation, the short videos you like to see on YouTube, and
mm.
the live stream events and the esports events. And yeah, when you check the audience of the 24 hours of Daytonas, the 24 hours of Le Mans, Nürburgring, Spa, etc., this is always the biggest audience of the years for iRacing. And it is the
Yeah,
same
yeah.
for private league. I mean, like I compared like the Sports Car Open season where we had two cars compared to the Porsche Esports Super Cup on YouTube. It's like 4 or 5 times the audience of the Porsche Super Cup.
Which I don't find weird, but it's just I when I was first sort of looking at that, I was thinking, oh, I'm a bit skeptical of the numbers here. Are the numbers bigger because you have, let's say, in the Grand Prix series that used to run, you had what,
Mm,
30 drivers, 30, maybe about 6 teams. So you've only got 100 different people watching at most. Whereas when you
mm,
watch a big 24-hour event, you're having literally thousands of people watch who are driving in the event. Does that actually mean that there's interest? Yeah, in a sense, but I'm talking outside interest, away from drivers, because I've always wondered that about series. When I watch a series and I go, how many of these viewers are involved in the series and are just watching, and how many of these are proper audience that you can make a profit off of,
mm,
and all that kind of stuff.
mm,
And I don't know, like endurance racing is very popular. Like it's growing, like you say in iRacing. I just like quick rant to the side. Is there an endurance race every week now on iRacing? Every time I look at the schedule, I might be wrong, but I swear every time I look at the schedule, there's like a freaking 12 hour of Sebring every 3 weeks, a 6-hour event every like 2 weeks, the 48 hours of the centripetal circuit. I don't know. There's literally an endurance race every week. And I'm
Um,
like, do people have anything else to do with their weekend? Obviously not. But I'm saying like it's also it's number one really awesome for iRacing, and that's something that they can embrace. But what else you do talk about in your articles is that iRacing aren't exclusive either, which is also
mm,
good. So they can
mm,
sort of have deals with Porsche and still have a deal with supercars, for example, and not have to worry
yeah.
about that.
Mm. Yeah, the thing is, I think, yeah, there is definitely lots of racing, and that's kind of a mistake in terms of marketing for me. Like um, when it comes out, I wanted to talk about the iRacing Esports network.
Mm.
Like, I thought it will be like, the pinnacle of the iRacing World Championship. And
Mm.
at the end, this is like a library of every single event you can think about.
Yeah.
And that's cannibalized the audience because there's too much races for me in that network. Like for
Yeah.
me it should have been like the world championship and like the really top tier private championship, like for example the IndyCar initiative with the Lion Earth, the Endurance Wave with the Neo and SEO, and that's it. Like
Mm.
all the little there's like 1,000 GT championships, uh and there is just too much for the audience to identify itself and to fix them to a product. Because
Yeah.
when you are developing things at the start, you really have, in my opinion, to have a low offer. I mean, in terms of numbers, like really a low number of competition, build an audience on it, and when the audience is bigger enough, then you can expand your horizon. But
Yeah.
when they start that thing like this, they expand the horizon right at the start, so people were there is a race available now to watch at any time. This is great for the the hardcore passionate, but
Yeah.
for a casual fan, a casual sports fan, like this is too much to watch because you don't know what is the best competition out there, and there is no ranking in terms of appeal for the competition,
Mm.
marketing wise and sportingly wise. Because at the end, when you are inside the community and when you are really checking all those championships, there is not that much I mean, really big, well marketized and organized championship around
Mm.
there, who has the potential to become professional and to, build a real economy around them. There's like, of course, the World Championships. And on the road course, because I won't talk about the oval because I'm not aware enough of that scene
Yeah,
to,
same.
giving
Let's just
a
steer
proper
clear of the
feedback.
ovals. Yeah.
But for the roadside, I see like Neo and SEO are really pushing a lot on that side. And I mean also the level of the grid on those championship. I
Mm.
mean in SEO, like even in LMP1, with all the differences we can make through the setup wise, the strategy, uh, the difference were really like thousands of seconds between like Mivano, Pure now
Mm.
Redline and us. And it was same case with the battle in LMP2s and in GT as always, because GT racing is always super competitive. And yeah, I really think the audience liked it, at least for those championship. Despite the switch to the iRacing Esports network and the development of the scenes,
Mm.
they're the championships that have kept and built stronger audience through the years. When for the World Championship, if we compare the numbers of the Porsche Esports Super Cup compared to the Grand Prix series back in the days, uh, let's be honest, they are not here. They are not here at the moment.
Did you hear about the Supercars Championship that they're about to announce soon? It
Yeah,
might have been
the
while you were
V8
sleeping.
Supercars, you mean?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I don't know how much I can say, but I probably know as much as the article says anyway. But they're going to have like an all-star type of series where it's just your real life drivers competing,
Mm.
and it's going to be broadcasted on TV,
Okay.
and it'll be the same crew. Well, I mean, actually, I don't really know what it's going to be in terms of crew, but it'll be I'm hoping to get involved at time of recording.
Mm.
And it's an awesome way to attract viewers into this because it's a bit of fun. And yes, it's not the real thing, but what else are you going to do in this meantime? With the whole
Mm.
coronavirus dilemma going on, like
Yeah, exactly.
it's awesome. I think it's even last year when we ran the E Series, the only difference this time is it'd be nice to get the E Series drivers involved, but then they would all beat, all the real drivers who don't do this enough.
Mm.
And that could cause some issues, but at the end of the day, it's I don't know. This is the perfect time for sim racing to boom, man.
Yeah.
Right now. I know it's
Yeah.
awful for the world, this whole situation, but if you look at the bright side, there's an opportunity for a lot of people here in this world to take advantage of this situation. With COVID-19.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, for the V8 Supercar series, yeah, there is lots of talks going on other racing series as well to make that. And on our side as well, we launched just a couple of minutes before we start recording publicly. Like we are trying to set up for iRacing and the road section,
Yeah.
a WEC type of event,
Oh, yes.
a 6 hours race with
A one-off event, you're
invitational
saying?
drivers. Sorry?
Just a one-off race? Or is this a
Yeah,
championship?
just a one-off race to make a test and giving us a time to prepare also for that.
Yeah.
Because with the quarantine process, like we all know that we are all stuck for the next at least 3 or 4
months.
weeks.
Yo, really? I thought months. Yeah.
Yeah, it will probably be months, but at least for the hardcore quarantine, let's be optimistic and maybe said that it will be for a month. I think it's like
Yeah.
45 days in Europe. At least in France, it is the case. I don't know for all the other countries, but
Wow.
I think it's pretty much like a European initiatives. So
Mm.
everyone will copy paste what the other are doing to slow down the contamination,
Mm.
which is a good thing. But for us, yeah, we were starting with a one-off event to see how it goes because yeah, I really wanted to put additional values on it because it will like 55 teams, and we are trying to for those 55 teams to have at least one ERL driver or influencers on each cars, and to avoid like the craziness on iRacing of the setup development and the performance differences for drivers.
Yeah.
We were planning to at least have 2 weeks of practice and to make our own BOP and fixed setup for everyone to have a proper balance between competition and entertainment for guests, era drivers or influencers who are less used to the teams that we are, or like a Joshua K. Rogers is, to still have fun and to still have the possibility to be competitive as well.
Mm. Someone was talking to me the other day about the respect of sim racing and
Mm.
how, when people think about esports, yeah, and it's all, in sim racing, it's all like, oh, that little nerd in the in their mother's basement and stuff like that.
It has quite changed, to be honest,
Yeah, but
for the past
it's
3 years.
it's still a little true for like a few percent, but it's not like
Mm.
everybody's like that, if that makes sense. Yeah, it's a very small percentage, but that's just a wrong stereotype, about sim racing. And I was thinking like, oh, who cares if people still disrespect sim racing and esports? Like, people are trying to get respect for it. Like, people still don't respect motorsport. I still speak to people who don't think motorsport's a proper sport, like
Mm.
racing cars. They think, oh, you
Mm.
just sit in the car and just drive around. You don't need to be fit. There's no skill. Like, you just need a driver's license when you turn 18. And I'm like, well, it doesn't work that way. You do need to train from when you're younger, but it's just world education and exposure. So
Yeah. Mm.
I don't know if that's going to change though over this whole coronavirus period, because that's what someone was saying. Like, oh, esports is going to be so much more respected. And I'm like, no, I don't think so. I think people are still going to
Um,
disrespect it.
Yeah, I don't know. At least it would put more visibility to more people. So
Mm.
for sure, we will have maybe more advocates for esports and for us for sim racing. But at the end of the day, when it will end, most people will also get back to to their lives. So it's an opportunity to showcase ourselves and to share the right messages. Now, I don't think that the fact to, fight against those mentality is something that you can really fight against. This is just, for me, just times and education, of, as you said, because we will share more and more good example about what is going on and what we are doing,
Mm.
and then mentality will change. But yeah, we can take the example of most of the F1 esports drivers. I'm thinking of Brandon Leigh, of David Tonitza, even Martin Stefanko and stuff. Like the diet they have done and how fit they are right now compared to where the scene was 3 years ago.
Mm.
It's really day and night, to be honest. And for more and more people, this is the case in sim racing right now. So yeah, for me, as you said, it's not even a problem or something I talked about too much, because we just have to do our thing, to do our best, and then
Yeah.
the results will come after.
So you've written a couple of articles, and are they available only on LinkedIn, by the way?
Yeah, I shared them on LinkedIn, but they are public, so everyone should be able to find
Yeah.
them.
Okay.
We
So
are we are behind the scene. We're working on the new website of Race Clutch that should come out in a couple of months' time,
they'll be
and
available
I
there,
think I will
hopefully.
share them into it as well for more people to see them. But
All right. So
they got quite a positive response, to be honest.
yeah. We're running out of time, so we're gonna have to talk through the. We're gonna have to keep our answers short here. But your first article. This is part of the reason why I brought you on, because we were supposed to have this chat months ago. But anyway, doesn't matter. Your first article was written last year, and it was
Yeah,
basically about having motorsport teams involved in sim racing. And it doesn't mean
yeah,
we reached a level of professionalism or
mm,
professionalization, is what you're trying to
mm,
say. It's
yeah,
actually quite the opposite. That's what you're trying to argue.
mm, mm,
And when I read through it, I was thinking, oh, like this is pretty important right now, because a lot of these motorsport teams are getting involved in sim racing, right? And they're
yeah,
hiring people who are qualified and they're knowledgeable and they're smart people, but they might not be the right people to grow an esports team. Are we seeing
mm.
that in F1 esports, for example, already? Is that some teams are doing better than others because they're attracting the right talent and right culture? I feel like that's the case.
Yeah, definitely. It is definitely the case, and the results are starting to show that in the F1 esports and in other areas. For me, the main problem was the disconnection between the community and the people who are trying to involve and to 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 showcase that as the business. Because I was discussing about that with Stefan Filas, which is who
Yeah.
is the brand manager of the FIA.
Yeah.
During a conferences in Switzerland, it was like 1.5 weeks ago, so before went crazy. There is that misconception about esports. Like everyone think about sim racing too fast. Like
Mm.
sim racing is like, let's say, as a business, 3 years of age. Since the F1 pretty much has launched its esports championship.
Mm.
When everyone started to get involved, the first example was Fernando Alonso, for example.
Yeah.
Um, uh, People think like, okay, they have seen all those articles about esports, but about Counter-Strike gaming, about League of Legends, about Fortnite, for example, showcasing like stadiums and so on. And because they have seen those articles, they thought that instantly sim racing will go into that point. But for those
Nah.
scenes, I mean, Counter-Strike, League of Legends, etc., they are existing for 10 or 20 years, even for Counter-Strike. So why they are
Mm.
there now? It is because they have like 10 or 20 years of history when sim racing was just starting to growing up. So most of the starting esports initiatives in sim racing were too strong, too fast. Um, if we take the example of Fernando Alonso, Logitech
The
G2
team that doesn't
Esports, I
exist
think it was.
anymore.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't exist anymore, and there is multiple example about that. I mean, except of the press release, we can talk about the Jean Lizzy Sports Academy. We never more or less heard about them anymore. They are participating into the Le Mans Esports Championship, but that's pretty much it. Recently, there is the team Fordzilla, who was like for the start of the championship on the Le Mans Esports Series, racing with Ferraris, with Ford liveries during the Le Mans 66 movie promotions. I mean, yeah, there is a lot of people who wants to get involved because they see the potential, but you know, for most of them, and I started to write those articles to present it the scene,
Yeah.
because I starting a bit the consulting side of the of Race Clutch,
Yeah, but
and talking about to companies, you know, the main purpose of those articles is to, you know, for the ones who wants to get involved now, to have a reference points for teams. Secondly, for promoters, the one I have shared recently, and the next one will be for drivers, because there is also lots of problem there where drivers are signing like, let's be honest, just bullshit contracts that doesn't make any sense
what
legally, commercially.
what does
Like,
that mean? Like
I
money wise and just
yeah,
everything.
yeah, there is like, yeah, I've seen some things like that doesn't make any sense if you have any business or a little bit of background knowledge, and if you take
Mm.
care of yourselves legally, or I don't know, just taking some helps from your parents and stuff like that. So
We we
yeah,
we mentioned FAG2, right? Or FA
mm,
Racing.
yeah.
Like ironically, they actually had a good manager in place, like with Danny Engels involved.
Mm.
He was I mean, he did an awesome job, you know, and he's still sort of in the business. I think he's working as an advisor to Red Bull Racing, to
Yeah,
F1
now
Esports.
in fact, like G2 had this initiative with Fernando Alonso, and now after the end of Fernando Alonso, and there was a bit of a political side with Formula One, because when they launched the initiative, Alonso has been put out of McLaren's team at that time,
Yeah.
so it kind of fucked up a little bit the business for them. But they bounced back, and now they're managing Red Bull Esports, which is in fact nearly the same entity. But I think
Sort of.
for
Mm.
Danny, it was just like the start of the project, and the basement was maybe not optimal with the first initiative with Fernando Alonso, but which is more on his way and his vision now with Red Bull Esports.
Yeah, see, Danny is an example of someone who I think, because you talked about this, hiring people who are not just former drivers who were really good at the sport and
Mm,
expecting them to be good managers. You know, like you don't just
mm,
hire Leo Messi and I
yeah,
mean, who knows
exactly.
how Leo Messi would go, but how is Leo Messi going to be a good manager? We don't know. It's completely different
Mm,
to playing football, you know? But then
yeah,
you
exactly.
lost me in the article when you wrote there are a lot of good managers, including Zinedine Zidane. Okay, that's all right. Steve Kerr, awesome. And then you put Jason Kidd on there, and I was like, "Are you serious? The worst guy you could have possibly written on this list." And I looked at the date of the article. I'm like, "Did you send me this late? Did you send me this in like 2017? You sent me this when the Milwaukee Bucks are the best team in the NBA with a different coach." And I was like, "Oh man." There was like the worst name you could have put on there.
Yeah, that was maybe Jason Kidd wasn't maybe the best
The best example.
example, but yeah,
But
you get a point
I get
on
the
that.
point.
But
And that's
the
why
idea the idea was to say like,
mm,
there is pros and cons on that strategy, and the fact that
yeah.
in sports it is working, but because like sports is existing for 100 years. So there was also in place like all the education needed to make those conversion works between being a sportsman to being a manager, and yeah, that was the main focus on that point.
You see,
I
I
didn't put
really
even Tyron Lue. I could have
Tyron Lee. No,
that could
don't put
have been
Tyron Lee.
even
Tyron
worse.
Lee's terrible. No, don't do that. Don't do
Yeah,
that.
no, I'm joking.
I really, I really do admire Christian Horner because he took over Red Bull when
Mm.
what was he, 31 or something like that,
Yeah,
early
yeah, I think
30s,
so. Yeah.
and he's done an awesome job. You know, because when there are young managers trying to manage something to the scale of that length, and inexperienced managers too, like he's done an
Mm.
awesome job so far over the past 15 years, which
Yeah.
also leads me to say, before I forget, you mentioned Fordzilla.
Yep.
Is that the worst name possible in sim racing right now?
I mean, I talked about that, but on the if I was on a marketing meeting, like the one of the most well-known vehicle in the automotive world is
Mm.
the Nissan Skyline and the nickname Godzilla.
Yeah.
What the hell do you thinking when you are Ford, which is an
Well,
American company, when one of your competitor is a Japanese company, and you are taking a copy paste of his name with yours on it, like I mean, on a scene which is like uh, with a really small audience compared to automotive fans, and expecting to convert that into the real world. I mean, marketing wise, I don't understand the moves behind that. And yeah, but we will see how it goes for them. I wish them to succeed, because the more successful example we have in the scene, the most credible we are. But
mm.
yeah,
I I don't mind the creativity. Like at least they're being creative and they're trying, but I think they could have come up with a better name than that. But let me be
yeah,
honest with
but
you, coming up with a
yeah,
name is especially that name, like you said, probably not a good name for branding. But coming up with a name is really difficult, you know? The best
yeah,
names
yeah,
just
sure.
pop up on the spot.
Mm. Yeah, 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 for sure. That's a difficult exercise. But yeah, the thing is, like, you have to put that in perspective where with the funds they have and the people they have in marketing, and it's like it's Ford. It's not like a guy who is trying to launch his initiatives. There is like maybe, I don't know, maybe three, four, five, 10 people involved behind the project, and it has not come to everyone's mind that parallel between Godzilla, Fordzilla, Nissan, and Ford. Like, I mean, you're working into the automotive world, so maybe a bit of culture should have, aware. You should be aware of those kind of problems,
Yeah.
and
In
maybe I'm a bit too harsh with them. I don't know, but yeah, for me that was really an evidence when I saw the launch of the company and of the team,
yeah.
and of that project for Ford.
Well, let's wait and see how they expand and go with this because the way that
Yeah.
esports is going in sim racing, they'll be changing their name every 3 weeks because that's how high the turnover is in sim racing. The one thing you really touched up upon in the article, and I really actually like this, you're talking about F1 and promotion, so sort of
Mhm.
copyrights and how they block, streamers. They're
Yeah.
blocking gaming YouTube pages just for using the game. So one thing I've always disagreed with, not just Formula One, but like Major League Baseball still do this, I think, and NHL, other sports do it as well. The NBA don't. Is why block every single video you can find to claim the
Mhm.
copyrights if it's on YouTube? If I'm Formula One and a fan is uploading like, hey, here's Hakkinen passing Schumacher, splitting Ricardo Zonta at Spa. I'm allowing 3 million people to look at that, even if it's
Yeah.
copyrighted. You're building market share. Why do you need to
Mm.
copyright that? And what profits were F1 gaining in the first place? It makes no sense. Look at the NBA's market share now and how it's grown. And
Mhm.
me growing up in the early days of YouTube, like the mid 2000s, when you're on YouTube, you can find any NBA clip you wanted,
Yeah.
even if it was in like 144p. Like
Mhm.
it's
Yeah.
there. But with,
Yeah.
with, with
Exactly.
Formula One and all these sports, there's nothing. Like everything's blocked on. You can't even put 3 seconds on without getting blocked.
Yeah. That's yeah. I mean, yeah. I think I don't know if there is a bad or good way to manage that. I guess it's
Well,
just their
the
own
good way is
shows.
this. This is the good way. The good
Yeah, I
way.
think too, because NBA like
Mm,
to open their league, like they have create, as you said, more market shares,
yeah.
and they are not closing too much the sports, because for me one of the main problem. But I think Liberty Media is starting to, even if people are talking that Liberty Media is not always doing the right things and so on, I really think that, for example, with the Netflix documentary or the F1 TV, for example,
Mm,
they are trying to, open a little bit the borders. And now, most of the time, even if there is issue with content creations, because, it's also the content ID of YouTube. which is detecting like the virtual part of F1, so the F1
Yeah,
game,
which makes
such
no
as a
sense.
real race, and that's why there is those things who are blocked because normally I mean at Codemasters and F1 most of the time they are trying to unblock the content that has been which is based on the F1 game. But yeah, it still happens too often, so I don't know how they can fix that because there is also like lots of commercial agreements that are going on.
Yeah,
I
but
mean,
you
between
just
diffusers and stuff, and because this is a closed economy and because there is so money involved, I guess they want also to control as much as they can to,
yeah.
evaluate the price of their product as much as they can to the people they are selling to because there
See,
is like this balance between volume and value. So NBA has went to the strategy of volume, so sharing as much as they can and then convert that bigger audience into market shares. And for F1, I think it's more about a value strategy where you are trying to maybe close a little bit more the borders, but by doing so, increasing the price of your product when you are selling it to a producer or stuff like that.
I think if you look at it long term, the bigger you build the market share now,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
if I
I totally agree with you.
so exactly, you know what I'm about to say. If
Yeah.
I right now tell Liberty Media, show me your market share right now, your numbers. Stop unblocking stuff. Maybe stop the live streaming, which is illegal in the first place, right? But don't allow that and allow people to upload, like there's some great channels out there, which I'm not going to name because if someone listens to this, they're all going to get blocked. So I'm not going to name them, but I'm subscribed to some great channels out there that make me watch Formula One highlights from like the 1970s, from the early
Mm.
2000s, and then I'm like, this is awesome. And then they get
I'm pretty
blocked.
I'm pretty sure we are thinking about the same channel.
You think about the same channel? Yeah,
I
James
think
C.
so.
Anyway, that's the channel. So shout out to that guy, James C. Good on you. Anyway, that's the stuff where I'm like, if you give me your numbers now and you stop blocking stuff and then you show me your numbers in 5 years, I guarantee you there's a long-term gain from this for the
Yeah,
sport.
yeah,
And
definitely.
it's not just YouTube, it's other places too. I'm not saying
Mm.
allow people to illegally stream your races, because number one, that's against the law. And number one, Formula One sort of, I don't know if they have a liability
Oh,
or a
by the way,
responsibility.
something comes to my mind. Did you see that story about all the last year season where you can find them?
Well, on Reddit motorsport streams?
No, no, no. Last year, it has been shut down since then. But I saw that it was like a couple of months ago, like I think it was the 2019 or 20, yeah, I think it was the 2019 season. All the
Mm.
season, in fact, was on Pornhub. The
Wait,
whole
where was
season
this?
can be found there.
Okay.
And yeah, it takes like weeks to find out for Formula One about that. But yeah, talking about the platform where you can find racing, like yeah,
Yeah, well,
sometimes it went kind of crazy for people to put those highlights and stuff like that.
I look. Moral of the story is, I think F1 overdo it in terms of blocking rights and all that kind of stuff. There's a way of doing it, and there's a way of saying, "Oh, I saw this, but I'm going to pretend I didn't, and we're not going to block it."
Mm,
And there's a way of overdoing it, where you're blocking games that have and stuff that has nothing to do with Formula One, and it's a great chance for someone to accidentally come across the video and go, "Oh, this sport looks pretty cool. Like I'm going to keep checking out the next video," and eventually you gain a fan. It's stuff like that that helps.
mm.
But at the end of the day, we'll fucking talk about this for 5 hours, man, because I love F1, but man, this is how much I love F1. I could rant about it for a while. When it comes to, you're someone who's been around the F1 esports scene for what?
Mm.
At least a
Uh,
year now, 2 years at least, I think.
since the beginning, in fact. In
Yeah, even
2017,
3 years.
I was already there, and I
Yeah,
even went to the Abu Dhabi finals.
yeah. So, do you think that I mean, this is weird to ask. Do you think relationships killed the draft in a way, or do you think the draft was done well? Because I feel like the draft works similar to how it would in the real world. Like when you watch the NBA draft,
Mm.
the first few positions are filled with the talented guys, and then those guys who have good relationships with managers who are like, oh, they shouldn't have been drafted, some of them, but they managed to make a call and managed to sort of get
Mm.
involved. Do you think that's the case, or am I overlooking this?
No, it's more or less the case, but the thing is, like, the drive idea was a good idea, and I think it puts a new element also to showcase a bit more talent and to have a bit more, turnover into the scene and to bring new talents and engage young people to turn in and to have the opportunity to showcase themselves.
Yeah,
Now the thing is, like the NBA, you have 15 players in your franchise,
in the lottery.
when in F1 you
Oh,
have two drivers. So
yeah,
to
that's
make
true.
the rotation works, I think it likes maybe 1 or 2 years time because it will be like the end of a 5 year cycle for F1. I
Mm.
mean, pretty much like in the real world, like the top talents, there is not that much people who can make it through. So yeah,
See that?
in it, I don't know how it will evolve for the draft in the future, but yeah, I think the system will be kind of stuck in a point.
But see,
Uh,
that's why I like what Williams Esports is doing, because I mean it's one of the only things they're doing well at the moment, right? But they're building a good esports team where it doesn't just have to be related to F1 esports. You've got a great
mm.
culture behind the scenes of guys who
Yeah, but
seem to get
because
along
it's
well.
It's Ravi behind who has also a good knowledge of the sim racing scene and who has
Exactly.
the whole experience behind it. So
Is that Javi Guerra
I'm not
behind the
surprised
scenes?
about how successful they are and how well managed the project is because they have a guy such as Danny, for example, for Red Bull Esports, who has really the culture and the experience of sim racing right now. Of
Are you
course,
talking
there
about?
is
Are you talking about
yeah
Javi Guerra here?
yeah
Yeah.
exactly
Okay. Just making sure
yeah
we're talking
exactly
about the same guy.
yeah.
Yeah, he's awesome, like you say. He's done an awesome job with that team, built the culture, and like I said, Williams have got to hang on to the team because it's one of the only things they're fucking doing well at the moment. But along with that, like I think in sim racing, like I said, I've said this for years. Yeah, I've basically over talked about it. Is sim racing being a team sport, and you want to
Mm,
build a team of good guys, like Red Bull picking up Graham Carroll, who's very talented. Like fuck yeah, I'd love to race with Graham Carroll. You know, he's an awesome dude to be teammates with. He's a fun guy, and it always brings me back to like, do you remember who's that dude from Inside Sim Racing? Darren Ganji, whatever his name was.
I don't
I
remember his
remember,
name, but yeah,
yeah, he
I
had a
see
rant.
who you are talking about.
It was like 6, 7 years ago. I don't know if it's still up on YouTube. It might be in the deep realms of the internet. But he had a rant over Team Redline's Ben Cornette. And I'm like, okay, well, he was like, Ben Cornette shouldn't be on the team and stuff like that. He has no place being with all these talented guys. I'm like, well, number one, Ben Cornette's pretty quick. He's got a world championship license. And number two, even if he, isn't top 5, if he's top 15, he still makes a big difference behind the scenes. He can be like a glue guy. You need those guys in sim
Mm.
racing too. The guys that people are going to get along with, test well and stuff like that. But I don't know, Darren Gadget, that rant was weird, by the way, for anyone who's seen it. Even I think Sean Cole had like he had to go. He was like forced to go along with the rant when you watch the video. It's like someone was shooting a pistol like under the table, was about to pull the trigger. Felt sorry for Sean. I was like, is Darren like holding a taser under this table, forcing Sean to say this? This is like the stupidest thing I'd ever heard. But it goes to show, like, see, Redline's doing well, and those guys like Ben Cornette's still part of the team now. I don't think I've seen
Mm.
the dude race in years. I can't remember the last time I ever saw him in a race.
I don't remember too. I don't know. I don't know because yeah, it was the last time was when I pretty much starting to see the at the start of the iRacing World Championship scene. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's quite a long time ago now.
But anyway, sorry, I went off topic there. I'm just saying, like, having team guys, even if you're not quick. What I mean by not quick is you're not, competing for wins. It's
Mm.
still an awesome thing to have. I've had a lot of those guys. I've had a lot of guys I've hated who are winning races, and I think in the long term it just doesn't work. I'd rather kick that guy out of the team, in my opinion.
Yeah,
But
the chemistry in teams is is pretty difficult to find, because there is who you are on the track and who you are outside of the track, and to find the right balance. We went through hardly into that experience last year with Race Clutch. When on the iRacing scene we had like I think 4 or 5 drivers departure, because we were just not on the same on the same line and with the same vision. And I think like being a quick driver, of course there is the talents for the last stance, but being a quick driver you can learn it, but fitting to a mentality of a team and of a vision, this is not something you can learn. You have it on you or you don't. And this is the most difficult part, as when you are a manager, to find out those people and to evaluate well the people who can help you in the project outside of just raw pace and sports results.
Your next article was about developing a successful championship. So for both drivers and spectators, basically a sim racing championship. And you talked about how promoters are a key factor to this. So promoters are what? They're people who are financially supporting, or is that all? Or can it be something else?
Promoters are, the main entity who is managing the championship. If I take the example of Gran Turismo, it is Polyphony Digital and the FIA, Liberty Media for the F1 Esports, or WRC promoters for the rally parts. The promoters is really the one who is investing money and time on it. I mean the big one on the equation.
So we talked about broadcasts. Oh, sorry, you talked about broadcasts. We're about to talk about it. What do you like about the current sim racing broadcasts? Like, I love how iRacing, like out of all the sims I've watched, and as much as iRacing need to do a better job promoting their awesome sim, they have the best looking sim out there on the market. Yeah. Like, it looks the most realistic.
By a country mile, to be honest. The iRacing has, and that's why I really want them to push more on the roadside, because in terms of how it looks just amazing. And I think we can. The thing is, it is offering also a lot of possibilities for promoters and broadcasters. I mean, for playing with the camera angles and stuff like that. They have developed that for 10 years, so they have so much advance compared to everyone else. I think only maybe Gran Turismo have that kind of tools, because they have the support of PlayStation, Polyphony Digitals, and they have a company who is so big and so talented that they can, put another good product on the market. But for iRacing, for me, they are really, really ahead in terms of technology. And I think we can go even further on that. The example I am taking, like, I don't know if you watched it before the start of the winter testings in F1. Like McLaren put an ad with the that drone camera. The WRC did it also for the 6 hours of Spa last year. When with the drone they were following the cars. A thing like that on iRacing. I don't know if technically if it is possible. I think so. But that would be awesome, because on the real world, you have the physical limitation of the battery, the wind and that kind of stuff. When on sim racing, you don't have the physical limitation. Even for broadcasters and cameras, like, you can do absolutely crazy things. I was taking the example of the article I remember of Ken Block, how he revolutionized for me the content creation around racing and motorsports. Top Gear was also a good example that I could have taken like 20 years ago, about how they showcase the cars, how they produce things.
Well,
and I really think that sim racing offers more possibilities that we don't know yet on the broadcasting side.
The last years of Top Gear on the BBC was some of the best cinematography I've ever seen, on a TV show. Like, it was awesome. You know, the way they presented, especially those supercars when they had the McLaren P1
Mhm.
on and the Ferrari and the Porsche. I mean, they looked bloody awesome when they presented those cars. It's it was it was it's just bloody brilliant. I'm just thinking about it now. I lost my train of thought. You know what I think we need more of in Formula One are more shots of the crowd during the race,
Mm.
and it needs to happen during the overtakes because we get too much of those already, and we need more. I'm being sarcastic, by the way, Richard. Just letting
Mm.
you know,
But
because
you need to have crowd to make things.
yeah, oh yeah, exactly. No more crowd. But I was thinking I went to go to I was about to go to the Albert Park event, and I was
Yep.
thinking, oh, this would be a great time for me to like bump into drivers and journalists and commentators and have a conversation. You know, I do it every
Mm.
year. I know the spots that they all enter and exit the track from, and I'm like, oh, I couldn't go this year. I'm like, you know what? It's okay. I'll fly to a race in Europe this year. I'm like, oh, you can't even do that now. Is there
Yeah.
going to be a race this year at all? That's what I'm concerned. Like, how long is this pandemic going to go on for? Is the freaky thing. But
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
which brings me on,
I think.
leads me on. Right, we're talking about the broadcasts
Mm.
and how else can we improve sim racing broadcasts? I feel like because I do a lot of commentary, obviously, for those who may be
Mm.
listening to me and you for the first time. When I listen to commentary, you're a big fan of sort of broadcasters raising their voice,
Mm.
not really yelling, but you know what I mean. And I think it's tough to do when you're at home because the audio isn't as high quality as when I've done a TV broadcast where I can
Mhm.
literally say anything and I sound awesome. And what else needs to be improved with sim racing is when you hear a crowd in the background and have that atmosphere, that adds so much to the element.
Yeah.
When watch a real world broadcast and then watch a sim racing broadcast and just listen to the ambience and the atmospheric noises, and you just don't capture that in a sim racing broadcast, and it just makes
Mm.
them look less of a quality, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. At least maybe not less quality, but there is less element in terms of experience for the spectators for
Yeah,
sure.
immersion. Yeah,
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, I think like I think it is NASCAR and the Coca-Cola series are doing a good job now with the webcam stuff. At least to have and Racesport has tried that on a couple of events. I'm
yeah.
thinking of Jamie
Rallycross, we did
Flukes,
that.
I think, who
Yeah.
was sharing his camera. I think it was Mitchell, yeah, in Rallycross who was doing that too.
We did that
Uh, f-
with Stelian Chepelevsky in the Rallycross series.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, I remember with
the world's most
him
awesome
stuff.
sim racing rig. For those of you who want to check it out.
Yeah, yeah, he has really, yeah, he really went crazy with his rig, but yeah, yeah. It adds at least the element of the reaction of the drivers with those webcam and how because now of course with the virus we are kind of limited because those events with crowds cannot happen right now. But yeah, I guess the first step with and it is also part of the drivers and teams' responsibility because at the moment I have for sure focused on promoters, on teams, but it also in terms of drivers. If we want to grow up as a scene, I really think that showcasing ourselves and working more on our own marketing and our own image as an individual and as a brand need to step up. And for the broadcast, yeah, maybe helping the broadcasters to have more point of view, more cameras. A thing that I would love to see also is when a race spot is doing and others like when you are inside of the car and you have that fan immersion moment.
Yeah,
Even to have a common Discord for all the competitors and to be able for the broadcaster to jump inside of the cockpit and to have all the radios going on. So you have the immersion of the cars, but also the drivers talking shit during the races
yeah.
and
Well,
stuff like that to
that
add a little bit more immersion. That's
that
kind
stuff
of
would be. Well, they did that at Was it the Gran Turismo event or was it F1 Esports? They did it at one esports
yeah,
event.
in both of them, but because they have the team radio for now, they have introduced that for the 2019 season in Gran Turismo,
Mm.
and I think it was even last year or the year before for F1 Esports.
Yeah, they're yeah. I hated when F1. If I was a driver, I hated when F1 would bleep the radio messages because it's great for the fans. But as a driver, I would be like, oh, how do I get F1 not to broadcast something? And I'd be like,
Mm.
hey engineer, like let's pit on lap 7. Fuck you. And then they wouldn't they wouldn't broadcast it. But now they would just bleep that out and cut it off, you know? So
Yeah, it's
you
it's
can't
your
fit in
point.
a swear word every now and then
Mm.
just to not get it broadcasted. But anyway, I'm just thinking out of the box. There's what were you just talking about before? There was the the immersion and stuff.
Mm.
One thing I love about race formats is everyone's got personal preference, right? A lot of
Yeah.
people, endurance racing is very
Mm.
popular at the moment. I'm 0% a fan of endurance racing. And I love, I'm more of the Grand Prix 2 hour style of race. I hate sprint races. I hate those like 20-minute events, like the stuff those. It's too quick. I love a Grand Prix event because it's a mix of a little bit of endurance, but it's still captured in 2 hours. And I think it's the perfect format for any new series because you look at an NBA game, and yeah, they have 82 games a season, but it takes about 2 hours to finish a game. NFL have 16. Sorry, they have. Well, it's going to be 17 in the next few years. 17 games soon with a new bargaining agreement. But those take about 3 hours. A football match takes 90 minutes to 2 hours, depending on breaks. So to me, if you're starting a series right now, and you were talking about this in your article, in my opinion, I reckon a Grand Prix event like 90 minutes to 2 hours is the perfect length right now to attract the biggest market share out there.
Mm. Yeah, I don't know. I guess, you take the example of the NBA or football, for example. The thing is, like, for basketball, you have an action every 24 seconds.
Mm.
And for football, it's kind of different compared to racing. And the problem with racing, at least for the real world, is all that technology and budget differences we have. So in sim racing, maybe that format will work because the racing is really close and much more competitive than real life by essence.
Yeah.
Uh, I mean, competitive in a different way. I mean, more focused on the drivings and pure performances when the competitivity in racing is more about the development of the technology and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't want to say like sim racing is by essence more competitive than racing. It is, but on a different way. You know, there is not all that technological part because yeah, considering the efforts like for example Red Bull, Mercedes, or Ferrari are doing to develop their own technologies, this is kind of crazy in terms of competitivity. But for
Yeah.
the spectators, it kind of killed the show at the end and the entertainment around the sports. When in NBA and stuff like that, for sure we have long games, but or at least long, let's say between 1 hour and a half and 2 hours.
Yeah.
But you have sequences of actions that are pretty clear and pretty, there is a lot of change and a lot of things that can happen. When in racing, sometimes it's kind of difficult, even in 2 hours races. We had some fantastic races like the German Grand Prix, the Austrian Grand Prix last year, but that's still an exception. So I don't know about motorsport because if I take the example of the F1 Esports, they are doing a 2 hour show. This is the
Mm.
concept of the F1 Esports, but you are doing 2 or 3 races during those 2 hours with the
Yeah.
25% race distance. And
It's
for,
this.
for me, it works pretty fine. Like those sprint races, I kind of like it to be honest. That changed that changed a bit about what the real world is proposing in terms of offer. I'm not close to those ideas, and I really think that doing a copy paste about what real motorsport is doing is not the way to go. But it's kind of a never-end conversation because it depends of so many elements. The reception of the community, the cars, the tracks you are using, the drivers you have in, the competitivity for the scene, all those elements are what is needed to take care of to then make to choose a proper format into your racing series.
Yeah. Well, exactly. I mean, I'm looking at the numbers now for endurance racing is very popular, you know. The only problem I
Mm.
have with endurance racing is it's just the time, you know, it's the time factor. And we discussed
Mm.
this in your article, like if you, I mean, how much time do you have to commit to this, you know? Because I was thinking the reason, and it's all personal choice, right? Like even when Gregor Hutu came on my podcast, he still does endurance racing, you know, he jumps in the GT
Mm.
every now and then, but even he's not really the biggest fan of it. He'd rather do a Grand Prix style F1 race, if that makes sense. But sort of the
Mm.
way that, you know, it's all happening, at least iRacing at the moment, is that's you've been put into, you know, a hole. Like you can't do anything
Mm.
but that at the moment. But at the end of the day, it's a lot of time, you know, out of your weekend. And if you're someone who's trying to commit to sim racing, unless you're a natural talent, if you're someone who's had to sort of work for your talent really hard, you're one of those kinds of people, it's so much time to commit, man. And like I said to you, there's a freaking race every week now for endurance.
Yeah, but
I'm telling you,
that's
there's
it.
going to be a 48 hours of centripetal circuit soon or something.
That could be a good Max Bunter's idea.
Yeah, we should. Um, other thing you talked about was, man, you talked about a lot of things. This is a long article. I'll actually
Yeah,
link
yeah,
it in the YouTube description for those who
yeah,
need it.
yeah, for sure,
Otherwise, they can
for sure.
find you on LinkedIn, right? They can find you on Twitter too. So
Yeah.
a lot of places they can find you. But another thing you spoke about was drivers sort of retiring early in sim racing. Something I really
Hmm.
related to
Yeah.
because I'm planning on making a comeback. I've tried to the past year,
Ooh.
but
That's an exclusivity, right?
yeah, yeah.
First public announcement.
Well, I mean, it's been announced like 50 times the past year. I'm just gonna start doing it anyway. The problem with drivers retiring early, and it's not just sim racing, I think esports in general has a high turnover in terms of athletes. Like,
Yeah,
you have all these
for sure.
athletes retiring young at like 23, 24 in some esports. And I was someone who I retired, and I was 19 when I retired. So coming back now, you know, I'm still not even close to my prime. I'm like, it's actually a good time to make a comeback. But is the reason why people are retiring, which one is it? Is they're spending too much time on it because, or is it the money? What is it? Because to me, I mean, I love esports, I love gaming, but there should be like a 4 hour limit to gaming per day so people can go and enjoy their lives, if that makes sense.
Mm. I think it was Martin Cronky who was talking about the time he was using to practice. And I think most people mistakes, at least for drivers, is like taking like 3 or 4 hours per day sometimes to practice. For me, like your brain cannot be focused properly during all that amount of time. Maybe it can happen like one times a week, but not every day. And
Yeah.
Martin was saying, I think it was an interview with Sean Cole, that he was doing like sometimes you have to do those big sessions with car development and stuff, but most of the time it's just racing. And Baras Remenek is doing the same in the team, like trying to stay on shape, like 45 minutes, 1 hour a day, but you really know what you are going to do during that practice time for 1 hour,
Yeah.
and that's really enough. And
It,
for me, like in our car setups development, like we had like those sessions like 2 times a week where we take 2 or 3 hours as a team. So everyone is racing for I think like 1.5 hours when we practice for sports car open and stuff. And yeah, we manage every time to with the improvements of our development, to decrease the times on track, but still increase our performances through time. And I think this is a balance that drivers, when you start, you want to put the hours in, but this can be quickly mistakes. And the fact that, to come back to your initial question about people who are retiring, I
yeah.
think previously, like in the time you were competing in, it was pretty normal because the scene was really niche.
Yeah.
And I think it was the example for you, considering the ages you retired. You were in college and stuff, so you still have a lot of free times, and then you have uni, and you are starting
Oh, I got a
to
job.
work, yeah,
Yeah.
to have a job and to start your professional lives. So you have to, make a choice to about what you are doing between your professional personal life and your passions. And most of the time, because sim racing was not as rewarding as it is right now,
Mm.
the obvious choice was to focus on your job because you need the money to make a living out of it, you know. And sim
Well,
racing wasn't offering that possibility at the time. Right
I,
now, the
yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
No, no, go. Sorry, I was just gonna say when I was competing at my best,
Uh,
I was doing, I'd say, on average 3-4 hours a day during the season,
okay,
and
that's
maybe
quite
during the off
that's quite
season,
a lot.
you definitely take a break where you don't touch your wheel. You need
Uh-huh.
that. But then I remember when I started to drop off one of the years in terms of pace, I just couldn't commit every day to do it. I just had so much going on in my life
Mm,
and stuff, so my pace dropped
mm,
off. But I don't know. I think the 3-4 hours a day was sustainable for me. Like now I look at professional athletes. Let's say a basketball player. Like some of the young guys are putting in probably 3-4 hours on court every day. You and I love our
yeah, for sure.
basketball. Like
But they are
they'll,
paid for it. That's their job properly. So
yeah,
there is the environment to to do that, and it is the case for some of the F1 esports driver right now.
yeah, exactly. Which is good. But I definitely think like that there should be a limit for. Let's say it's like let's use iRacing as an example. You should have a 4 hour limit to your account per day. So if you want to do 8 hours straight, the only way you can do it is from like 8 p.m. to 12, and then it resets, and you can do 12 to 4, but you have to stay up, and it's like discouraging to do that. And then you can't do it for the next day. But there has to be something like that because it's going to keep people healthier. It's still going to keep people competitive because there is no way. I swear there were some sim racers who I'm not going to name, but there are some sim racers who are really good today. Who I do remember one of them was online for 13 hours on a Saturday. And I was thinking, like, man, like, are you kidding me right now? Like, I'm all for hard work, but like, you know what? I want to go and have a drink of beer with friends, and I want to go and do other stuff in my life and get a job. This you got to find a limit to it.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good debate, but I think like people are responsible of themselves at the moment, so it's not up to iRacing to be a parent for everyone, in my opinion. But
Just keep
I
everyone
understand
healthy.
your point competitively
Mm.
about the fact that and this is actually like the kind of a problem for the Gran Turismo scene
Mm.
because like I think this year there is like for the whole championship if you want to do every single round there is like 4 rounds a week, and I think
Yep.
between all the races and stuff it's like more than 400 races through the year, which is kind of crazy for a season. and
Mm.
uh, and yeah, to be honest, I had one of our drivers who has a family life. Some of the drivers have even kids. Like you can't dedicate as much hour or even just participate into the racing without talking about just practicing for those races, without sacrificing something in your personal life, which is a problem because at the moment Gran Turismo isn't offering enough business to make a living out of it.
Mm.
So this is the problem with retirement, and for me is more the balance between how the scene is offering a proper business and what it's needed to be performant in that scene.
You know
And
what would
that's
be?
why some of the people are retiring, or some of them are just putting a bit aside those events. Even of the top guys. I mean, if we take to stay on Gran Turismo, the example of Igor Fraga, but it's kind of different because he has his real life commitment. But
Yeah.
of if I'm taking the example of Mikael Hazal, for example, from Redline and who has won the Nations Cup last year. He said like because I have to focus on my study, I won't have enough time to make it happen this year. Although uh, because he's passionate and because he's goddamn quick, I think he can be able to qualify. And because of the recent events, it is changing things. But even drivers like them are making a point that this is too much, and they are,
Yeah.
the top of the list, even in terms of talent. So if you lose those kind of people who are example for other drivers, and who marketing-wise for promoters are really a good leverage to attract sponsorship, to attract to put more storytelling into your championship and so on. If you lose them, then yes, you are losing a really important element
Wow.
into your promotion.
I'll tell
And
you what, Max Verstappen, who can be a storyteller as well, you know, a really
mm,
quick real life driver who's doing it in the sim. That dude, I think if he did 12 hours a day of sim racing and never raced F1, I think he'd be fine. I think he just loves racing, you know.
yeah,
That guy,
that's definitely possible.
yeah. Like you have to love it to a level where you just can't ever get sick of it. It just seems that way with Max. Like I think Max, like, you know, I'm a huge Lewis Hamilton fan, but I don't know. I feel like Max could be one of the greatest of all time if he finds the right cars. You know, he's that good of a talent. Because Max coming in reminds me of when, you know, Lewis first came into the sport.
Mm,
And, you know, I wasn't alive when Michael was around, but it sort of was the same from the stories I hear when Michael first arrived onto the sport. Similar to Vettel in a sense, although Vettel sort of jumped around, you know, mid-pack teams a bit. But you know, this is awesome, you know, which is amazing. What I'd like to see more in sim racing is last thing, like poker buyouts in tournaments. So what I'm talking about is, let's say you go to race in, let's say it's the Porsche Esports Super Cup,
mhm,
and you have 10 rounds, and it works like NASCAR, where each round has a prize pool of,
mhm,
I don't know, let's make up a number like 100 grand, and the winner takes home, you know, 50%, blah blah blah, all the way down to
yeah,
P30 takes home $300. And what you can do is, no matter what position you finish in, you take home a prize, but
mhm,
it becomes a very small prize depending on the position, rather than just have one winner take out, you know, whatever it is now,
mhm.
30,000. Can't remember how much it is, and it would sustain more people to, you know, to sim
Yeah,
race
that's
more.
true. That's
I
true.
don't know if that would work though, because poker, you know, is people do buy in to the tournaments, so
Mm.
it works a little bit differently.
Yeah, yeah, I think it could be a good solution to be honest, just to yeah for sustainability at the end, as you said, because and I guess it will even works better now because we are still in early age of development, so we don't have that much way to earn resources, to
Mm.
earn money. I mean, for sim racing, there is
Yeah,
like the content creation, but if you are doing the content creation, you are losing time for practice and sporting wise, considering like only the tops are getting money. It's kind of a bad cycle. Like you can develop the monetization on a way, but that means that you will have sacrificed a part of your business. You can't do both at the moment.
yeah, we'll get there.
Although none of them individually are big enough to have a sustainable business.
Yeah,
So yeah, the thing is, yeah, having more repetition in the cash price and prize money can be definitely a good thing. Maybe later, because the audience will be big enough, the teams will put enough money to give a decent salary to the drivers, as it is the case for some of the top F1 teams right now for the F1 esports. Maybe then, when it will be the case, as you have one sustainable and constant revenue, then okay, maybe that can make sense to, set the big cash prize for the winner or only the podium, and the rest gets nothing because they have something to make a living of.
mm.
But yeah, it's only working because the audience is big enough and because there is enough sponsorship and money involved to have, individual drivers paid by different structures.
Yeah. Well, good news for Coanda Simsport is they now have their own gaming house, which
Yeah,
is a world first for sim racing. Because I
yeah.
never thought sim racing would ever get to this stage. So at the moment, Coanda have Josh Rogers, Boggle. They have Mac Backham and David Williams. They're all living there at the moment. You like this, of course. This is awesome for sim racing. It's you know, apart from getting sick, living in a purple house, this is awesome news for Coanda. You know, this is great. I can't believe the team stepped up to this level. You know, it used to be my 3ID. The team's been around for so long, but
Yeah.
technically, this new team's only been around for 6 years.
Yeah, to be honest, I really like what Coanda is doing, and first as business, but also, you know, the human adventure, if I can say that, because I am pretty sure that considering the level of talent they have received like crazy offers. I mean, to you know to
What kind of
divide
crazy offers?
themselves,
Yeah.
or without taking maybe not crazy offers, but at least offers from other teams. Like if we take the example of pure racing team, for example, with Team Redline
Oh,
and the
yeah,
fusion of both of them, you know, I'm pretty sure that they have received those kind of proposition, or at least like I mean, Rogers at the moment for me, and I'm pretty sure that everyone can agree with that, is the best sim racer out there at the moment. I mean, he is so versatile. Whatever he is racing, he's fast and fast as hell. I
yeah.
mean, but you know, they are staying close together, and all the money they're. I'm pretty sure that to make that happen, first they have the partnership with Virtual Racing School that they are really working well on it. I mean, they have really a strong
Very
relationship
profitable.
together, and they are, you know, the thing about the house is that it is good in terms of the human experience for them, but
Mm.
also it makes so many sense in terms of value for virtual racing school as well. I mean, it's
Yeah.
easier to make setups, to create content creations, to make activations for sponsors, for them to run their races, to increase reliability in races. I mean, with the internet connection and stuff, it is really a move that that is, yeah, it's a part of an overall strategy for me for Coanda, and
And
I'm really happy
VRS.
for them
Yeah.
that they are doing that, and they are really an example about what you can do. And you know, they are not doing those kind of fancy investment and stuff. They are really being building step by step their brand and what they are doing in terms of strategy. So yeah, I'm really a big fan of
Mm.
what they
Yeah,
are
they're
doing,
very,
yeah.
very like, I'm not going to say the best, but obviously one of the best professional sort of cultured sim racing teams out there from the
Yeah, yeah,
start.
definitely.
Like
Yeah,
they,
yeah, sure.
Coanda might be a team that still has the same culture they had 12 years ago at My
Mm.
3AD. It's like exactly the same team. Like to keep this success for this long, I think it's because you've got pretty much a lot of the same people still there from what 10 years
Yeah,
ago.
exactly. Mm.
So
I mean, the close part of the team is really the same for many, many years, and they manage
yeah,
to attract people around them. So,
the problem I find now, yeah, is I read Josh Rogers said it's awesome being in the sim racing house because now he can see when his teammates, like if Mac Backham wakes up at 9 a.m. and starts testing, Josh is going to start waking up at 8 a.m. to try, you know, to beat him, try and be better. And I'm like, well, this is fucking not good now because Josh Rogers is already
yeah.
freaking quick. Now you got to limit his account and do something like I said before to 4 hours per day, so because it's going to be unhealthy for the dude, you know, in my opinion. But you know, whatever floats his boat at the end of the day. You know, he's successful. He's a successful sim racer. What
Yeah.
he's doing is working for him, so
Mm.
no complaints.
Yeah. Now the challenge for them, I guess, with the house is about you know, it's kind of and that's what I try to do as much as I can. You know, when you're meeting people online and then you know meeting them in real life and living with them, you know, that's a different experiences. So we
Yeah.
will see how it evolves within the team. But yeah, I think one of the challenges for them, even if I'm quite confident considering the values they have, and I think it's really a long time decision process for them because this is not the kind of project that you decide like shifting
No,
your
it's definitely
fingers and
been
said,
long.
okay, I'm going for it, and 2 weeks after
Yeah,
you have the house and everything else. So
and
it's I'm pretty sure like it's 1 year of work easily for them to make it happen.
the
But yeah, the challenge will be how they live together, I think.
yeah, well, I mean, living together is going to be the biggest. I mean, I don't think there'll be problems with that. A lot of them have spent time at the Sim Expo and stuff, but there's going to be
Mm.
a guy out there who loves taking a 30-minute shit and is going to just hog the. I don't know how many toilets they got in the house, but he's going to be doing that. There's going to be someone who hogs the hot water.
Yeah.
I'm that dude, by the way. Just letting you know. So that's why I wouldn't like a gaming house. I would rather just live on my own, or would live with a girlfriend or with my parents or something like that. I'd
Mm.
rather that. Yeah, they can catch the worst of me, not my teammates. My teammates, they can spare the worst of me, if that makes sense. You
Yeah,
know what
but yeah,
else I'm
yeah,
looking forward to?
that's part of
Yeah.
it, and for them, I think this house is like a first step. I don't know if you're following the rest of the esports scene, but what is doing Netshot with 100 Thieves,
Mm,
um, like, and most of the big esports organization, like 10 years ago, it was like the gaming house was really the trend, and really like everyone was doing that.
mm,
And after a couple of years, seeing that it kind of be not a cancer, but not healthy for everyone, or at
mm,
least not the most efficient way to be productive and stuff. But I think for Coanda, it's nearly the same vision to, this team house is the first steps. And after, maybe it will become, a proper office because they will leverage more sponsorship and stuff. I think for me,
yeah.
if I think about it, it is really a first step. And then the next one will be like 100 tips, to have your own facilities and you have your place to work and alongside your place to have your life and stuff. For me, it's
Well,
an investment and a test for them for the next maybe 1-2 years.
mm,
And in 2 years, maybe they will have even something bigger and they will separate personal and real life.
well, yeah. No, I I totally agree, and I think I'd rather call them, like you said, team houses. I think when I said gaming house, like it just doesn't sound as cool. Doesn't
Yeah,
sound as good.
yeah,
Team
yeah,
house
yeah, yeah.
sounds
That's true.
fun when
Yeah.
you say team house. But you know what I was gonna say before? I would really look forward to like the Apex Racing Team house, because with Kevin Ellis Jr. in that house, it's a sitcom waiting to happen on TV with anyone. That dude is hilarious. Um, but yeah, that's awesome. What's new for you now? What's on for the rest of the year now? What are you gonna do for the next months? Is there anything cancelled for you now? Any big events?
Not not really. I mean, there will be a couple of changes, of course, due to the recent events,
Mm,
but we will be quite busy in the next couple of months. It all started already at the start of March. So now on a short term, there will be that event that on to promote iRacing that I am hoping that will be a success and has a positive response by the community. There will be another event that we will organize, but I can't talk yet about that. But it will be a short term too, maybe in
mm,
the next 2 or 3 weeks. We'll see how things goes around.
yeah.
Then the launch of the company. I mean, all the paperwork and administration stuff who is going on right now,
Mm,
and then after that we'll share more. I think in May about a couple of announcements about how the business model is going, because we are taking a new path with Race Clutch,
yeah.
and explore new things in sim racing as a business as well. With
Mm,
all I have done in the past couple of months with the consulting side and so on. So yeah, I'm kind of teasing, but cannot announce things yet due to different confidential agreement and stuff.
mm,
But yeah, 2020. I don't know if you remember, but we had like, I think I launched that. I think 4 years ago, the Road to 2020 project,
mm,
where my vision was in 2020 sim racing. That will be the year where we have to be professional, or at least starting the process of the professionalization
yeah.
through our business.
Mm,
And that's what we are really doing right now. So
mm.
yeah, no, normally 2020 should be a good year for us in terms of project announcement and stuff.
Yeah, perfect.
I
And
can't
you're at a
announce anything yet, but I'm pretty excited for some things to comes out publicly.
yeah. Well, I mean, it's all going to be on your Twitter page too, as well.
Yep.
Lift and Coast _ so people can follow you there.
Yep.
But thanks for coming on, dude. I told you before the podcast. This was a. I mean, I don't think I got through half of what I wanted to talk about you with. Like this is going to have to be sometime later in the year. Talk about the rest of this. See how sim racing goes for the rest of the year, because it looks like good times ahead.
Yeah, yeah, sure, sure. Yeah, thanks for the invite, mate. Always a pleasure to to talk about that and doing those kind of content and to give a new insight for the community. Because I'm trying to bring in, through the articles and stuff, even some comments on Twitter extra, to put more the business side of sim racing into a public space, because I think the more people are involved in it, the more people are educated, and the better we can build a successful project. Even if it's not directly linked to Race Clutch, but giving more insights for the new generation of sim racer who is coming as well.
Yeah, 100%. All right, we'll leave you to it, mate. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks you, mate.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Simon Racing Report. As I said pre-podcast, it's available at the simonracingreport.com, our website. You can catch columns, analysis videos, a whole lot more over there, including past podcasts. We're available on YouTube, iTunes, /Apple Podcasts, whatever you want to call it. Spotify now, Stitcher. Grab the RSS feed, like the podcast page on Facebook, follow me on Twitter at JohnnyS8. Don't forget to follow Richard Arnaud as well, the handsome Frenchman. And most of all, if you like the podcast, give it a like, share it, subscribe, and check out Team Ad, for God's sake. Team Ad's been a supporter of the podcast now for over a year. We support Paul Smith and the boys over there for, I think it's definitely been over a year. I don't know if it's been 2 years. I have to check up on the date when we started that, but we've certainly been supporting them for a while. So check them out and give them a like give them a follow on Twitter, give them a like on Facebook anyway. Nothing wrong with that. And yeah, that's it for episode 96. It's been a while, hasn't it? I don't think it'll be another 3 months to the next podcast. We're creeping into 100. I've got some special things planned for that one. But until then, we've got 4 more. Wait, 97, 98, 99. Yeah, we've got 3 more. 4th is the 100th. We got 3 more in between, and those are just going to go as per usual. But I'm not one to celebrate things, but I'm like, you know what? 100 podcasts, almost 5 years of the podcast. Let's do it. Why not have a celebration? So that's going to be a real good special one. Most of all, stay tuned. Of course, subscribe. That's the best way to do it. Catch you soon.